This is the 911 Calls Podcast with the operator.
It is now January 6th, 2022. Sarah Buzzard has been sitting in a jail cell in Mercer County, Ohio for 4 months. She was arrested in September 2021, along with her wife, Naira Whitaker, a woman Sarah had loved, married, and by her own admission, helped commit murder. Ryan Zimmerman was 23 years old when he was killed in a second-floor hallway of a Columbus apartment building. His body was dismembered, his remains were scattered across multiple states, and for nearly 6 years, no one outside of that apartment knew what had happened to him. But now, investigators do, because Sarah has already told them. In the weeks following her arrest, Sarah Buzzard confessed in full. She named Naira as the architect. She described the attack, the tools, the roads they drove at 3 a.m, the bags they threw into dumpsters along the interstate. Her attorneys, Randy Lamar and Eric Wilson, had been briefed. A plea agreement was already in negotiation. So why is Sarah here again? Because the investigators aren't finished. There are gaps to close, a timeline to tighten, and details about Naira Whitaker that still don't quite add up. Naira, who took her own life on the day of the arrest, can no longer speak for herself. Sarah is the only person who knows what happened inside the apartment. Today, Sarah has waived her right to have her attorneys present. She's agreed to sit down one more time, voluntarily, openly, and go back to the beginning. What follows is that conversation. Nearly 2.5 hours of Sarah Buzzard, in her own words, walking investigators through the death of Ryan Zimmerman. Here we go.
Our coffee in front of you, so we've got you one. Feel free to
Thank you so much.
to have it if you like. If you don't like coffee, then
I haven't had coffee for so long.
it's a specialty. It's a Cinnabon, so
Okay, something good. So hopefully,
if you don't like it, we can get you water, okay? Yeah. So you do like you?
I love coffee.
Okay, good deal. So you wanted to get you something that was your so if she comes back here, she's gonna get you water just in case. Did you get some rest last night? Okay, good. I do.
But
Here, the floor's all shined up here.
bottle looks a little funny that it's sealed.
I start making soap in and
I know. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, obviously we've spoken with Mr. Lamar and Mr. Wilson, your attorneys. They're fully aware of what's going on. They've spoken with you. Is that correct? Okay. And they've given you the go-ahead to speak with us without them present. Is that correct? Okay.
Before a single question about Ryan Zimmerman is asked, the investigators read Sarah her Miranda rights, a formality, but a significant one. By law, anything she says today can be used against her. She knows this. Her attorneys know this. She's doing it anyway. That detail alone says something about where Sarah Buzzard finds herself. She's not here fighting. She's not here to deflect. She's here, she says, to fill in the record, to make sure that what actually happened is known, not just by investigators, but eventually in a courtroom, on the record. Whether that impulse is born from genuine remorse, from a desire to control her own narrative, or from something else entirely, that question will hang over everything that follows.
I explained that I'm still going to read you your Miranda rights here, just to make sure that's covered. But then we can just chat and put a press in place here. So that is what we will do here. It's hard to believe it's January 6th already. Mm-hmm. We appreciate you being willing to go over
Of course.
speak with us. So, what time did you get up this morning?
8:30-ish.
Okay. Right. So, read, write, speak English, correct? Okay. Highest level of education, bachelor's degree?
Yes.
Okay. I think we covered that previously, but I always like to make sure. And I can read it along here if you want to follow along. If you have any questions, stop me at any time, okay? I am going to initial next to each one as we go over them, okay? So before we ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. Do you understand that? You understand those? Do you have any questions about that at all?
No.
Okay. And your date of birth? I'm sorry. Somebody had that.
2291.
Okay, so, I guess I don't know what your thoughts are on the easiest way to get through this. Obviously, it's not going to be something easy to speak about. So we obviously want to make it as simple and comfortable for you as possible, but also, in your own words. We don't want to question after question after question. So we kind of feel like the simplest would maybe to be able to ask you to start kind of from the beginning, maybe when things started with when Jen moved in, that kind of thing, and then just kind of tell us how things played out. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
So I first met Jen around, I think, late June-ish, 2014, on a dating site.
Okay.
And Corey, my husband at the time, wasn't going to be involved. He knew about it, but he said that he wouldn't try to insert himself in the relationship. So she and I would meet up for movies at my apartment until around the third date when we became in a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
Around that time, I learned from her that she was transgender. She had been on hormone therapy for 6 or 7 years, but it was before she had her surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And when Corey found out, he really tried to insert himself into the relationship because he had this personal philosophy that a perfect relationship involved a man, a woman, and a transgendered individual. I don't know where he came up with this. I never shared it. Mm-hmm. Before Jen and I met in person, I had told her that he wouldn't be involved, so the fact that now he was trying to be involved did not help either of us. So we had our relationship, and Corey was trying to pursue other women without success. I never knew about his conversations because I didn't want to know, and he volunteered it to me. So then around February 2015, Jen went back to her hometown in Massachusetts to do some kind of paperwork, name change or something like that. She didn't really go into details. And then during her absence, that's when Corey started talking to Ryan online. I didn't know about their conversations until around early April-ish, when he told me he wanted Ryan to move in with us so that he could act on this philosophy. And we argued constantly for the entire month because I always felt like he needed this other person to make up for traits that I lacked, and that really, really hurt. And he was expecting me to, I don't know, not fall in love, but become infatuated with Ryan when I first met him, and everything would be perfect.
Sure.
So we argued because he was adamant about it. I did not want it to happen. He didn't like any of the compromises that I was trying to come up with. So finally, I came up with a compromise that I still didn't like, but it was the best I could do, which was Ryan would be allowed to stay in our spare bedroom on the condition that he pay rent, purchase his own groceries, and at the end of a 3-month period, he would have to have a job and his own apartment. Because I told Corey that if the relationship he was pursuing with him was going well, Ryan could still be around to see him, but I didn't want him staying in the house the whole time.
Well, that sounds fair.
Yeah, which he agreed to. So I talked to Ryan online once, and I did not like him. He was extremely subservient to the point where I found it extremely annoying. Like I was asking him, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And he said, oh, I like to draw. And I told him, oh, I have a degree in that. I'd love to help you. He said, oh no, I'll never be good enough. So I understand that his family, I could see why he had that kind of personality, but I didn't like it. And I let Corey know that I said, I didn't see what he looked like. I don't know if Corey had gotten pictures, but I never got one. And I said, I don't think I'm going to like him when he comes, but I will still give him a chance to at least have somewhere to stay until he gets on his feet.
By her own account, the apartment on the outskirts of Columbus was a household held together by tension and compartmentalization. Sarah and Corey, married, but in name only at this point. Naira, living in the curtained-off living room, openly loathing the newest resident. And Ryan Zimmerman, upstairs, kept at arm's length by nearly everyone in the home. What's notably is how Sarah describes this dynamic, is how clearly she positions herself as a passenger. She didn't want Ryan there. She didn't like him when she first spoke to him online. She tolerated his presence as a concession to her husband. She tried not to interact with him if she could help it. In the story Sarah is building, she is never the instigator. Corey pushed for Ryan to come. Naira despised him from the first day. Sarah was simply caught in the middle. Keep that framing in mind. It'll matter.
So Jen came back around mid-May 2015, and she kind of officially moved into the living room around either the end of June, early July, something like that, before Ryan came. So she set up her space in the living room. We fashioned a curtain to block it off from the stairwell in the kitchen, so there's a little bit of privacy. And then Ryan came, I don't remember exactly when, but I think it was either the end of July or early August 2015, somewhere in that range. And from that point, he moved into the upstairs spare bedroom. Upstairs, we also had the bedroom that Corey and I used to stay in, adjacent. So his spare room would be here, the bedroom was here, there was a long hallway, the bathroom, and then the office. So while Ryan was there, he did pay rent, he did purchase his groceries, but I didn't really interact with him if I didn't have to. Naira did not like him, or Jen. She did not like him at all from the beginning. She would make comments like he was a disgusting person, the world would be better off without him. She just absolutely loathed him, mostly because of his personality, but also because he would eavesdrop at the top of the stairs, and she would always catch him, and that really bothered her.
Like eavesdrop on your conversation, or just in general in her personal space?
If anyone was talking in the kitchen, he would sit at the top of the stairs and try to eavesdrop. So Naira, Jen kept to herself.
You can call her whatever you want.
Whatever you're comfortable with. Right, so Naira was, she stayed in the living room primarily. Didn't really interact with Corey or Ryan if she could help it, unless we were all in the kitchen during meal times. I bounced back from staying with her, going to work, and then sometimes staying up in the office with Corey, because that's where my desk was. I also tried not to interact with Ryan as much as possible, but I was a little bit more open if he had questions. And then Ryan stayed in his room primarily all the time. And Corey would bounce between hanging out in Ryan's room, staying in the office, or going to school. So we all kind of had a uncomfortable but functioning relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then in September, I think it was the 25th. I know it was the weekend when everything happened, and I can't exactly remember if it was a Friday or a Saturday. I think it was Friday the 25th. Corey told me that he was meeting a woman at the Greyhound bus station, and that they had reserved a hotel room in downtown Columbus, and they were going to stay there for the whole weekend. And he also told me that he didn't want to have anything to do with Ryan anymore. He wasn't what Corey expected, and he had not tried to hold up his end of the deal. He had scheduled several job interviews and never went to a single one because he was convinced that he was just going to get rejected, so why bother? Mm-hmm. So Corey told me that he did not want Ryan there anymore. He had told him that he wanted him to pack up and leave before Corey came back. Mm-hmm. And then he left to go to the hotel. The next day, I don't remember seeing Ryan at all the rest of that day. If I did, it was briefly to go into the kitchen to get something, but he didn't really talk to me. Mm-hmm. On the morning of the 26th, Naira started voicing some plan about killing him, and I did not take her seriously because she would make comments like that sometimes. Like if we were in a parking lot and we saw a woman waiting in her car, she would say something like, "Oh, I wonder what would happen if I just shot her in there," or, "Oh, I wonder what would happen if we drove this cyclist off the road," and things like that. She never acted on them, so I never took her seriously. So when she started saying things about killing Ryan, I didn't take her seriously.
Did she first say something that morning, or had she said something prior?
She may have made passing comments prior, but nothing major. It was less about murder, more about just violence. But she I can't remember.
Okay.
But if she did, they were short and passed, and then that was it. Mm-hmm. When I went upstairs at some point during the day to get something out of the office, Ryan had left a note propped up on the staircase banister asking to talk to me, and I really didn't want to talk to him because I just wanted him to go. Mm-hmm. So then I went back downstairs, and then later on, when I went to use the bathroom, as I was exiting, he stuck his head out of his room and said, "Can I talk to you?" So I finally did. I sat on the floor and listened as he cried and begged me to give him a second chance. He said that Corey hated him and that I tuned a lot of it out because I knew he just wanted a second chance. But I told him, "Look, I'm sorry that Corey said that and that he wanted you to leave before your 3-month period, but if that's what he wants, then I'm going to stand by it. Plus, I pointed out, you haven't tried to go to any of your job interviews, and you can't use the excuse that you didn't have a car or you didn't have like a resume that had interested them enough to schedule it. You just didn't want to go because you chickened out." And I said that I wouldn't do anything. That's what Corey wanted, then he would have to leave this weekend. Which is not what he wanted to hear, but he agreed to it. So then I left, I went back downstairs, and I filled in Naira on what he had told me.
Sarah has just described telling Naira about her conversation with Ryan. the one where he cried at her door, begged for a second chance, and was told by Sarah that he'd have to leave. And it's right after Sarah relays that information to Naira, she says that Naira's plan, quote, started to get worrisome. There's something to notice here. According to Sarah, Naira had been making passing comments about violence toward Ryan almost since the day he arrived, comments about how the world would be better off without him. But Sarah is careful to draw a distinction. Those were just comments. It wasn't until the plan started getting specific, detailed, methodical, tool-gathering specific that Sarah says she took it seriously. She also volunteers something here that her attorneys have apparently already anticipated. Why didn't you just call the police? Sarah gets ahead of the question by answering it herself. She loved Naira. Naira had been an anchor through a damaging marriage. She didn't want to lose her. But here's what she doesn't address. She knew, by her own account, that Naira had violent tendencies. She knew Naira was escalating, and rather than remove Ryan from the apartment, call for help, or even warn him, Sarah chose to stay. And when Naira gathered the tools, Sarah chose to help. Love, she'll say, explains it. Investigators will leave that to the jury to decide.
And that's when she went back to fleshing out the plan. I still didn't take her seriously, but I was starting to get worried because of how intricate it was getting. And then when she started gathering tools like trash bags, bleach, the handsaw from the shed, I realized she was serious. So I tried to talk her out of it, calmly at first, and then I started getting a little hysterical. And she told me that if I didn't help, that she was going to do it anyway, and that it was going to be a lot messier and a lot harder to get everything done by herself, and that Corey would probably come home before she was finished. So she said that she would just give me a small role to play, but she would do most of the heavy work. And usually at this point, the attorneys ask me, well, why did you do it? Why didn't you call the police? Why didn't you kick her out? And it was because I loved her. I knew that she wasn't a good person. I knew that she was kind of borderline sociopathic. She liked to manipulate people, including me early in our relationship, but she was the only person who had been there for me through everything that Corey had put me through. And she was the first person that I actually felt like cared about me. Maybe not so much at this point in our relationship, but later on, she was fiercely loyal to me. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't want to lose her. So I agreed that I would help. So in the evening, we waited until Ryan went upstairs to use the bathroom, and then we both went into the office. She had a rag that she dipped in bleach, and she had a bottle of vinegar next to her to add to it when the time came, because I guess they had some kind of chemical reaction and released some kind of poisonous gas. I don't really know, but she did research for it. So when Ryan came out, I was waiting in the doorway of the office, waited until he walked down the hall, and then I jumped on him from behind, put him in a headlock and pulled him down to the floor with my body weight so I could hold him while Naira came and straddled him and then pressed the rag over his face. When he started making these guttural gasping noises, Naira let me get out from under him, and I curled up in the office and cried. I didn't want to look at her or him. I wish that I didn't have to do it, but it was done, and I was so scared and horrified, but there wasn't I didn't stop. I didn't stop her. I didn't.
What was happening?
Yeah.
By Sarah's account, she grabbed Ryan from behind in the hallway, arms around his neck, her weight pulling him to the floor. She held him while Naira straddled him, pressed a bleach-soaked rag to his face, and added vinegar to intensify the chemical reaction. Ryan made what Sarah calls guttural gasping noises, and when Naira told Sarah she could go, she went to the office. She covered her face. She cried, she says. Ryan's calves, she said, were still visible from the doorway. His skin had already turned white. It's worth pausing here on what Sarah has just described. The attack was not impulsive. It was planned, with specific tools, a specific sequence, and assigned roles. Sarah's role, she says, was only to hold him down. She frames it as a small part, a lesser contribution, if you will. But holding a 23-year-old man on the floor while someone kills him is not a minor role. And Sarah knows that. Her attorneys know that. The prosecutors know that. What's less clear, and what investigators will press on, is where exactly Sarah's compliance ends and her participation begins.
So I stayed in the office. I didn't know that she had put duct tape over his face until the prosecutors or you, or I can't remember, somebody told me that when they examined the head that there was duct tape on it. So I didn't see her do that. I'm guessing she did it to make sure that he wouldn't breathe if he wasn't fully dead. And then she asked me to help her move him into the bathtub, but I wouldn't do it. I said I didn't want to see his face. I couldn't bring myself to look at him. The only thing I could see were his calves sticking out, and his skin had turned white, so I knew that he had died. So I stayed in the office for a while until she did get him in the bathtub, and she had put a trash bag over his head and severed it, and then put that into the freezer so that she could deal with it later. And she started using the handsaw to take off his hands and feet at the joint. And at that time, because his face, I didn't have to see his face anymore, I came out to help, and she gave me his clothes, instructed me to put it in a trash bag while she worked. And after, I'm not sure how much time passed, it felt like maybe an hour, she started to get intestinal cramps. So she went to lie down and said I had to take over. So I put the hands in one bag, the hands and the feet she told me to put in a bag, and then she also put it in the freezer for later because she said those would be the two big identifying factors and she would have to deal with them separately. So I removed the forearms and the calves at the joints, and it was slow, exhausting work, and I did not work fast enough. Her original idea was to cut up everything into as small of manageable pieces as possible and then dispose of them that way, but we didn't have enough time to do that, so we just had the head, hand and feet, the forearms went in one bag, the calves went in another bag, and then we just had to deal with the torso. Around that time, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 in the morning, I knew that it was starting to get light out. She came back to help and had this black Tupperware bin that she had kept some of her belongings in, emptied that out and brought it upstairs, and we put the torso in it, all of the pieces, and then bags that had the tools, rags, gloves, things like that, and threw those in there too. I waited while she cleaned the bathroom quickly. She said she would do a more thorough job later. And then we took the bin and put it in the back of Ryan's car.
What came next took most of the night. Naira severed Ryan's head first, bagged it, and placed it in the freezer. She removed his hands and feet at the joints when she was hit with intestinal cramps and had to stop, leaving the remaining work for Sarah. Sarah removed the forearms, then the calves. She describes it as slow, exhausting work. The original plan to cut everything into small, manageable pieces was abandoned. There was simply not enough time. By 4 or 5 in the morning, what they had was this: the torso in a black plastic storage bin, along with the tools, the gloves, the rags, the head, the hands and feet, bagged and in the freezer. The forearms and calves were set aside for separate disposal. At some point during the same afternoon, Naira had already reached out to someone online, a contact Sarah says she never met and never identified, who arranged Greyhound bus tickets for their return trip. The plan was to drive to Illinois, abandon Ryan's car somewhere remote, and take the bus back to Columbus. Everything was planned. Everything had a sequence. For a crime Sarah describes as Naira's alone. There's a striking amount of careful infrastructure around this.
Sometime on the 26th in the afternoon, she had apparently talked to a friend online who arranged to purchase Greyhound tickets for us. I didn't know who he was, and I didn't see her do it because she just wanted to keep it on a need-to-know basis. So once we got the bin into Ryan's car, that's when she told me our plan was to drive to Illinois, leave the car somewhere deserted, and use those tickets to come back to Columbus. So we started driving, and I stopped for gas after maybe half an hour to an hour, and then that's when the car wouldn't start again. She took my phone and was trying to troubleshoot it while I did everything I could think of, and we couldn't get it to start, so we had to call a tow truck and have it bring it back to the apartment complex. And we asked the driver to leave it on the side of that road that ran past the complex, but I don't think it was actually part of it. And then Naira said that I needed to bring my car around because we'd have to use it instead. And when I brought it up alongside, she took some of his belongings out of his trunk and put them in my car, took off the license plates, and just rummaged around and tried to find anything that needed to be taken. And then we moved the bin into the backseat of my car. And we left his car there and started driving again to Illinois. It started getting dark. I don't remember how long we were on the road, but I knew that the day had gone by very quickly. I'm guessing a lot of the time was spent trying to get the car to start, but it did start getting dark when we left in my car. And I started, again, driving towards Illinois, and once it got dark, Naira would randomly pick exits for me to turn off on, and we would drive around trying to find dumpsters that were open and unsupervised, and we would throw one of the bags in it and then get back on the highway and keep going. So we did that until we just had the torso left, but at that point And we had both been awake for 36 some hours, so I kept falling asleep at the wheel, and I told her, I can't keep driving.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we found the wooded area here, dumped the torso, and turned around and started driving back to Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to stop frequently on country roads to take a quick nap just so I could keep going. And I think it was maybe 2 o'clock in the morning by the time we got back.
The plan hits its first major snag before they'd even left the Columbus city limits. Ryan's car died. They called a tow truck, had it brought back and left on a roadside near the apartment complex. Then, Naira transferred Ryan's belongings and the bin into Sarah's car. She pulled off the license plates. She made sure there was nothing left in the trunk worth leaving behind. Ryan's car, now plated and abandoned, would later become one of the central threads in this investigation. Its discovery, along with the keys left inside, is what first drew investigators' attention. For now, Sarah and Naira drove through the night with Sarah's car, a cargo they could never fully outrun, packed into the back seat. Naira directed Sarah to highway exits at random, looking for unsupervised dumpsters. One bag at a time, mile by mile, they worked their way toward Illinois. They never made it. 36 hours without sleep, Sarah says, finally caught up with her somewhere around rural Ohio. She kept falling asleep at the wheel. She told Naira she had to stop, and the only wooded area she could think of, one she passed before on drives between Columbus and her mother's house in Mercer County, was just off of a familiar exit. That's where Ryan Zimmerman's torso was left, not in Illinois, not far from home, a few miles from a road Sarah knew by heart.
And Corey was waiting for us in the kitchen. He didn't suspect anything, but he was angry that I had turned off my phone, because he tried to text me to see where I was. So he was furious that he didn't know where we were. I did not want to talk to him. I just wanted to sleep. So we both, Naira and I both went back to the living room and fell asleep. I don't remember what she did with the bin. I know that she cleaned it out. I can't remember if she just threw it in the dumpster at the apartment or what she did with it, but it eventually disappeared somehow. And then she took care of the hands and feet while I was at work and Corey was at school. She did something to make it easy to pick the pieces apart and store that in a bag. And the head, she got this soup pot and made some kind of lye mixture and put the head in it, partially because it was kind of a trophy for her, but also because she didn't know the best way to dispose of it yet. So we had to so she put it in the soup bin, put that in a bag, or several bags, put the pieces of the hands and feet also in the bag, and then kept bagging it up, and we put it in the shed for the time being. And every time we moved, it would have to come with us. So that was a weight that I had to drag with me everywhere I went. Corey never suspected anything. I told him I packed up and left, and he didn't give him a second thought. He started dating another woman until he moved in with her sometime in November. And Naira and I vacated the apartment December, January, somewhere. It was slow work, and moved everything back to my mom's house. And then early January, Corey and I had an uncontested divorce, and then Naira and I married at the end of January. And for a long time, we would check the news constantly. That's when we found out that the torso was discovered. But as time went on, we didn't see any new news. We started planning for a future instead. And we had we made a suicide pact that should something go wrong or we get discovered, that she was going to shoot me first and then kill herself, because she said she would rather die than spend her life in prison, especially since at the time she was still anatomically male.
They drove back to Columbus in the early hours of the morning. Corey was waiting in the kitchen, furious that Sarah's phone had been off all night. She told him Ryan had packed up and left. He didn't ask another question. Life in the apartment resumed. Ryan Zimmerman had simply ceased to exist in Corey's world. He'd been told to go, and he'd gone. As far as Corey was concerned, the story was over. What followed for Sarah and Naira was years of carrying what they'd done. The head, preserved in a lime mixture and a soup pot, moved with them from apartment to apartment, from Ohio to Pennsylvania, tucked in the back of Sarah's mother's garage when they traveled to Thailand for Naira's surgery. For years, Sarah says, she and Naira monitored the news obsessively. They saw the report about a torso discovered in Mercer County. They waited, and when no identification seemed to follow, they eventually stopped watching. They started planning a future instead. But at some point, triggered, Sarah says, by the discovery of Ryan's remains, Naira formalized what they had apparently already discussed in passing, a suicide pact. If they were ever caught, Naira would shoot Sarah first, then herself. She said she would rather die than spend her life in men's prison. Sarah agreed to the pact. She says she was terrified of it, but she agreed. When investigators arrested them both at Sarah's mother's home in Mercer County in September of 2021, Naira Whitaker made good on half of her promise. She took her own life. Sarah was left behind. And now, 4 months later, sitting in a county jail with a plea agreement and negotiation, Sarah Buzzard is the only one still talking.
So she said that she would probably have to go to the male prison, and that was a death sentence in itself, because she was very, very feminine.
Okay.
I agreed to the suicide pact, but I was also scared because I'm terrified of death. I did not want to have it go that way.
Sure.
But as time passed and nothing new happened, I started to feel better, that maybe we'd be able to live a life together. And then the arrest came, and when I said goodbye to her, I could see it in her face that she knew.
And
when the officer at the Marion Police Department told me what happened, I wasn't surprised, but it still hurt.
Sure. I need tissues. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And
That's about it. So if you don't mind, I have a few questions, okay? Kind of going back a little bit to the point where you said she would bring it up and talk about it, I guess, and she kind of laid out her plan. What did she explain?
She was trying to figure out the best way to kill him without alerting anyone. She didn't want to shoot him because that would be loud, that would be messy, and it would draw attention. So the only other idea she could come up with that would be quiet would be strangulation. And she wanted me to hold Ryan down so that he wouldn't flee or kick her or anything, while she put the rag on his face. She didn't share the after part when we needed to dispose of things, either because, again, she wanted it as a need-to-know basis, or she hadn't figured it out just yet. So she told me that my role was just to pull him down and she would take care of the rest.
Do you feel like when you pulled him down, did he pass when you had your arms around him? Do you feel like he was dead and then she told you could go?
I don't know. I don't have any experience with what her body or what a body does as it's fighting. So I don't know. I know that he was still making noises as I left, but at that point I didn't know if it was him voluntarily doing it or if it was just a reaction. And after I got in the office, I covered my face. I didn't want to look, so anything else was noise for me.
You had mentioned that she went and gathered all these different things. And I guess, what do you mean she went and gathered? Did she go to a store to buy some of this stuff?
She got everything in the apartment. Trash bags and bleach and vinegar were in the kitchen as cleaning supplies. I don't remember where the handsaw came from. I don't know if someone left it there, if it was Corey's. It was something that I saw but never really thought about. But she knew that it was in there.
In
the shed.
Okay, which is the outside little, closet type thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you describe this all to me?
It was...
Or draw it?
So it was about this big-ish, or at least the blade was. So it kind of looked like this, where this was the frame.
Sure.
That was the handle, and then the blade was right here.
Okay. The pot, you mentioned that she had gotten a pot. Did she go purchase that somewhere? Did you guys use that previously for cooking, or where did that come from?
I think she had it with her. I know that it wasn't something that I had ever used. I can't remember if she already had it or if she had purchased it before. I just knew that it wasn't something that Corey and I had with us.
Okay. Because you had mentioned that she brought this up previously. How far previously did she start making comments about violence towards Ryan or killing Ryan versus when it actually took place that weekend?
Well, she made maybe not necessarily violent comments, but disgusted comments she would make ever since basically when he arrived. She more commonly said things like, he's a disgusting human being, or the world would be better off without him, but she didn't actually say things like, I wonder what would happen if I killed him, until that day.
The day that happened. You had mentioned the bleach and vinegar on the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then mentioned something different was put into the pot?
Lye, some kind of lye mixture.
Okay. And is that something you would have had on hand, or did she go out and purchase?
That she did purchase. The head in the freezer didn't draw any attention because she had packed like vegetables and stuff in front of it, so it didn't look like it was anything. She asked me to drive her to Lowe's to purchased the lie and then brought it back.
Okay. You had also mentioned that she did her research.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Researching the chemical reaction. I'm not sure what else. I wasn't either paying attention or actually there when she was doing that research.
Did she have her own computer? Okay, own accounts, that sort of thing? Because as we previously mentioned or spoke, there was different searches and things on your Google. Would that have been you, like searching the jugular, that sort of thing, to make sure you got it right the first time?
I didn't search for it. It may have been something that she searched for, because I would let her borrow my phone if she needed something right away. So I don't recall making the search myself of her, because I can't think of any information that I would have gotten from it. So that would be something that she might have done. The car, the troubleshooting with the car, I knew that she did.
She was searching. Okay.
This is a pattern worth tracking. Investigators have just surfaced something specific, a search on Sarah's phone for the jugular, how to locate it, presumably how to be sure of severing it. Sarah's answer is immediate and consistent with nearly every other uncomfortable question in this room. Naira must have done it. She used my phone. I would have let her borrow it. It's a reasonable explanation, technically. Sarah has already described how Naira used her phone to troubleshoot Ryan's dying car engine, to research chemical reactions, and to search general information throughout their time together. Naira's own phone, Sarah explains, was outdated and had limited data capability. But consider what that means. Taken at face value, Naira, allegedly the sole orchestrator of this murder, conducted nearly all of her research on Sarah's phone under Sarah's account, leaving a trail that now belongs solely to Sarah. If Naira planned to set up an escape route with Greyhound tickets, research disposal methods, and search for the most efficient way to kill a person, she did all of it using her partner's identity. Either Naira was uniquely reckless for someone Sarah describes as deeply careful and methodical, or Sarah is, once again, placing the evidence in someone else's hands.
The days leading up to this, you mentioned that Corey indicated that he, wanted Ryan gone, basically. Was how do you say, is it Naira? Naira. I'm sorry, I'm messing up every time. Was she a part of those conversations when he explained that to you? Did she know that he wanted him out of the picture?
Typically, he wouldn't say it while she was there, but I would relay the information to her, just so everyone was on the same page.
Sure. Okay. Did Corey ever tell you what his issues were with Ryan, why it ended so abruptly?
Part of it was he discovered that Ryan had, I think it was genital herpes. I think it was some kind of herpes, because and I don't know exactly what went on between the two of them, so I don't know how he found out or if Ryan told him or something, but that was kind of the last straw for him, because Ryan wasn't what he expected or wanted, because he wasn't able to start any sort of hormone therapy or see a psychiatrist for it. He was physically male, very much so, and I don't think that's what Corey expected. I don't know if he had gotten photos of Ryan that made him believe that he looks another way, but it's a combination of Ryan not being what he expected and finding out he had herpes, Ryan never going to his interviews, and whatever other conversations they had, all of it culminated into him wanting to go back to pursuing women and forgetting that it ever happened.
Sure.
Did you know that Corey was reaching out to other women back on like dating websites trying to find?
Earlier I didn't. Later on I didn't see him, but I knew that he was doing that. And he, even before he started trying to act on this 3-person philosophy, he was pursuing women to try to have a threesome. And he would contact my friends while I was in college, asking them if they would be interested, and pretending like I was also agreeing to the idea, but never knowing about it. So I lost a lot of friends. People stopped hanging out with me. Roommates would call me furious, and I had to tell them this is the first time I've heard of it. So it was something that he always did. But after Ryan, it was more open, I guess. I didn't see the messages. He didn't explicitly tell me about them, but I wasn't surprised if he'd say, you know, I'm meeting this girl somewhere or whatever.
Okay. Going back to the items used in store, you mentioned she got it all from the house, so like the trash bags. The vacuum seal bag, do you recall that?
Those I think we got after we moved to our first apartment in Pennsylvania, because it started to smell a little funny, so we needed a better seal. And her mother had needed vacuum dyes anyway, so we bought some, took what we needed out of it, and then mailed the rest to her mom to use.
Okay. And then the duct tape, as you mentioned, you were told by your attorneys or what have you. And I showed you a picture. The duct tape, it's like an aqua blue. Do you recall having that on hand?
That was mine.
That was yours. Okay.
She most likely got it out of the office because I used it to like decorate notebooks and stuff like that.
Sure. So I guess the day leading up, do you recall going with Ryan to Kroger or anything like that, or did you all go to Kroger and make multiple different transactions?
It depended. He did come with us on a few occasions in my car, and once we got there, everybody would kind of split up to get their own things. Corey would go either by himself or with Ryan, and then Ira would come with me. We all did separate transactions, and once we were done, we would load up everything in the car and come back. I think he also went to Kroger or places like that on his own.
Oh, sure.
But if everybody needed to go to the grocery anyway, then we would just all go.
Do you recall any larger purchases? Say there was multiple transactions like the day before at Kroger for like around $100 each.
That was for the rent. I'm trying to remember how much I charged. I think I want to say it was $200 because I think our rent was $600, something like that. So he would pay for a third of it. I would pay for a third for Naira and myself because she didn't have a job, and then Corey would pay the other third. So those, I do remember asking Ryan to withdraw that money for rent, and because there's a limit on how much cash back you can get, he'd have to do it a few times.
Okay, that makes more sense. I appreciate that. Do you recall, I guess, what happened with his debit card or what have you after he had?
Naira kept them. I don't know what she did with them. I think she also got maybe like a flash drive or a hard drive. But she kept all of those to herself. I don't know exactly what she took. Yeah, I can't remember what was in the trunk.
Okay.
Bags, boxes, and she took what she wanted and then sorted in her area.
Okay. So you don't know if the debit card would have been used by either of you after he had been deceased for a couple weeks. Okay. Do you recall if anything else was in, I guess the torso was in its own bag? Mm-hmm. Okay. Was there anything else of his belongings or clothing-wise that would have been in there that you recall?
Not in that bag, because it took up most of the bag. I think we had to maybe double bag it, but any small belongings like his clothes would have been put in its own bag, because that was something that we could easily put in one of the dumpsters.
What about like the my understanding is he traveled with gaming system possibly, or even a tablet, anything like that. Do you recall him having those things or having those?
The inventory of what was taken from Ryan Zimmerman after his death is growing. His debit card, kept by Naira, his gaming system, likely sold, Sarah suspects, through Naira's regular practice of buying and reselling electronics, a tablet or old laptop that Sarah had lent him, possibly a hard drive. Naira, Sarah says, kept all of it. She handled it. She decided what to do with it. For a woman who was, by Sarah's description, severely agoraphobic, unable to drive, financially dependent on Sarah, and incapable of managing even large household tasks without being guided step by step, Naira Whitaker was apparently also managing a parallel stream of logistics around Ryan Zimmerman's death that Sarah was largely unaware of. That tension between the Naira Sarah describes as fragile and dependent, and the Naira she credits with orchestrating nearly everything, is one that investigators will keep returning to.
I think he had maybe a Wii U or a 3DS. That was something that Naira kept, and I don't know what she did with it. I wouldn't be surprised if she sold it, because she would buy and sell a lot of electronics and fix them up and then resell them.
Sure.
So I imagine that she did that at some point, but it would have been on her own. The only thing I would have done would be take the box to the post office for her.
When she does those transactions. Okay.
So I remember seeing the Wii U gamepad screen a couple of times, and then I didn't see it again. So
Okay. You doing okay?
yeah,
I know we're asking more questions, so I apologize.
It's hard reliving this over and over and over, and I'm
Hopefully after today we can
move forward. And I'm so right. I think I have to do it again at the sentencing, so I'm just very emotionally drained. I'm gonna do this over and over.
Well, unfortunately, in situations like this, sometimes it helps to get it all out. The more that you speak about it, then that offers closure for you as well.
Yeah.
So that has with me in past circumstances, so hopefully you'll get that same closure.
You mentioned that Naira kept a hard drive. Would that have included like a tablet or a computer or something, or just specifically to kind
I
of?
think it was specifically the external hard drive. I did let Ryan borrow either a tablet or an old laptop. I can't remember which. Maybe it's like I can't remember if I still had my old laptop or if I had given up to someone, but he did borrow something to use to communicate with friends, family, or be online, whatever.
Okay. Do you recall searching how to clear or wipe like an ACES tablet?
That would have been something that Naira would have already known how to do.
Okay. Okay. Do you recall anything about getting on any of Ryan's accounts, like around that time frame, and speaking with one of his friends on, I guess it'd be Steam or the device.
Hang chat.
I didn't. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that Naira could do. She was very, very tech savvy.
Okay.
So if she did that, I wasn't there to see it, so she may have done it while I was at work or something. But it doesn't surprise me to hear that something like that might have happened.
Do you recall any of Ryan's friends reaching out, asking anything what happened? I mean, after he was dead.
No.
Okay. And speaking of work, could you have been at work this weekend and come home early around lunchtime or anything? Or
I don't think so. I wouldn't have come home during the break because it was only half an hour. It takes, I think, like 20 minutes to get from Barnes & Noble to my apartment. The only day that I think I could have worked might have been on the 25th. But I know I definitely didn't on that Saturday and Sunday because I was helping her with everything that whole time, and I don't know if I called off work. I don't think I did. If I did, it would have been that Sunday when we came back early in the morning, or the day after, but I can't exactly remember.
Sure.
But I do know that on at least the 26th and early on the 27th that I wasn't scheduled to work.
okay. So just so I understand, the 25th is when Corey would have went to meet the
I
woman.
believe so.
Okay. Did he drive there himself? Did anybody bring him there? Because
I can't remember if I had given him a ride there or if he took the bus. Because I know at one instance I gave him a ride and another time he went by himself.
Okay.
And I get that mixed up.
Sure, that's okay.
But he got there somehow.
Okay. So he went on 25th, and then Saturday the 26th. When did I guess the plan start playing out?
When we woke up, maybe it was like 10:30, 11, somewhere in the late afternoon, late morning, early afternoon. I think we were just relaxing in bed, and that's when she started thinking out loud about those things, and I was kind of half asleep, so it was just more of her ramblings to me. It really wasn't until after I finished talking to Ryan that her fixation on the plan started to get worrisome, because before it would have just been really basic info, like, oh, we killed him and cut him up and throw him somewhere, and that was the end. But when she started going into the details, like, we would need to remove this first and that, and then we would have to do this, that it started becoming less like her other comments and more something new that I hadn't experienced.
I don't know. And roughly about what time of day was it that it would have been upstairs and all this started? Because you said it took a while. So roughly about what time of day?
Anywhere between I don't know exactly the time, but I knew that the sun was starting to go down.
Okay. No, I don't expect you to.
Yeah, so it could be anywhere from like 6 to 9 somewhere. I just remembered that that the sun was setting when I was in the kitchen, and when Naira started to get the things out from under the kitchen sink.
And then, then took a while. You said you were awake for 36 hours. About what time did you return home then after?
Maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, around 3 at the latest.
Okay.
I started to lose track of my concept of time because I kept sleeping and then driving, sleeping and driving.
Sure.
Okay.
He said Corey was waiting for you at that point in time.
I think he had come back sometime in the evening, I guess, and since we didn't leave a note or anything, he couldn't call me. He didn't know what was going on.
Did Naira have a phone or phone then?
She kept hers turned off.
Okay, so it's not something that Corey would have been able to reach out, or would he have even reached out to her?
He might have.
Okay.
That was one thing that also bothered me was he had told me, it's kind of unrelated.
Sure.
He had told me that he had asked Naira for her number and that she gave it to him, which I thought was kind of weird considering she didn't like him. And then I came to find out that he had taken my phone, copied her number, messaged her and said that I gave him the number. And we didn't find out about that until Naira and I sat down and talked about it, and she said, oh, he said that you gave him the number. I said, no, you gave him the number.
Okay. Okay.
So any time after Brian would have been identified, were you guys watching the news or watching any of that beforehand? So you hadn't seen when he had been identified at that point in time?
Not identified. I never knew that he was identified.
Okay.
I saw the news report that they had found the body, that they were trying to get a DNA extraction or whatever, and that they hadn't found any matches. So I think maybe 2 or 3-ish years after that, we kind of stopped checking the news because nothing changed. And so I never knew that he was identified because I don't know if that was released to the public.
Sure. Talking about keeping parts of it for identification purposes, that sort of thing. You mentioned that she had placed the head in the pot and that sort of thing, and then there was other bags with the hands and feet. Were they all placed in one bag or separated out, or what?
I think it was just all in one bag, but I could be mistaken.
Okay. Do you recall if it was just the hands and feet, or what was all put in those bags?
It should have just been the hands and feet, because the forearms and calves, I know that we threw into some dumpster somewhere.
Okay. Do you recall if they were manipulated at all? You mentioned needing to put it in another bag because it started to have an odor. Do you recall if Naira or either you or her went into those bags at all to move them around, to put some of it in a separate bag or anything like that?
I don't remember. If I know that it was easier to just keep putting it in new bags than it was to take them out and change the bags. Plus the places we were living did not allow us to have enough room to really properly take care of it, so it was easier to put it in another trash bag, we might have stuck it in another vacuum seal that we had laying around, but we just kept layering it so we wouldn't have to deal with it.
So the pot was never opened back up after it was sealed? Okay.
The result, I didn't think so. I know she might have, but I never did.
Okay. And you had mentioned when the hands and feet were placed in the bag, you said that she went back and wanted to do something to separate them?
And to pick them apart so that it didn't resemble a hand or a foot anymore. Because she thought it would be easier to get rid of that part than the head. But I think once we put it in the bag with the head, at least I just kind of forgot about it and just kept everything in there.
Okay.
So she never necessarily did that part of it. That was just her plan
Right.
initially. Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
And you're gonna help.
And I need to use the bathroom or anything. I think I'm good right now.
Sure. Let me step out, take a quick break, if that's okay with you. Okay. Good with the water, things you need to.
I don't think so.
Okay. And then we're back. Okay. Is sound good for them? Okay.
Thank you again for the coffee.
Oh, you're welcome.
Is it any good?
It was good.
We took a long shot. It sounded good to us, so it took a long shot.
Investigators step out briefly. It's approaching the 1 hour mark. For Sarah, this is a familiar kind of exhaustion. She's told this story before to detectives Randy and Eric, to her attorneys, and now again here, in more detail than any of the previous conversations, though. She says she's emotionally drained from having to relive it. She knows she'll have to do it again at sentencing, but she keeps going. What's notable about Sarah Buzzard in this room, in both interrogations, is what she doesn't do. She doesn't lawyer up mid-session. She doesn't shut down questions she finds uncomfortable. She answers them, often in granular detail, while quietly, consistently, steering the narrative toward Naira as the driving force behind nearly every decision. Investigators know this. They've been navigating it for months. When they return, the questions get sharper.
So we have a few more things to touch on, if that's okay. Kind of went back and looked at some different things and wanted to ask additional questions for clarification. With regard to working at Barnes & Noble, would you recall working that morning on that Saturday, this would be the 26th, until like noon, or would you have gotten a call from Naira to come home, or?
I wouldn't have gotten a call from her to come home. Maybe I worked in the morning. I honestly can't remember. I know that she wouldn't have called me to come home. So if it was an early morning shift, I would have left around 6:30-ish, and I would have come home around 1 or 2, 3 at the latest.
Okay.
So I don't remember.
You do recall waking up that morning and discussing things, or Naira was making comments and things that were of concern to you? Okay. And what time frame do you recall waking up? Had this been able to be a conversation prior to going to work?
No, it would have been one after in that case, because we talked for maybe an hour or so. It wasn't like the kind of discussion we're having now. It was more like I think he was sleepy, wondering, spotted with other topics. Yeah, so I don't remember, but if I did work that morning, then when I came home, we might have laid around and talked about it.
Okay. And total different topic, okay. You're an artist, right? So some of your artwork,
Yeah.
can you explain that?
So art for me is a coping mechanism. And I know that Randy and Eric had mentioned that there were 2 pieces in particular that gave people red flags. One was a painting of a sheep with that was done in blood, or some of it. That piece I had done prior to ever knowing about Ryan. That was a coping mechanism for everything that I'd been through with Corey. And the artist's statement that I wrote about it said that I felt like a sacrificial lamb giving up my happiness so that somebody else could get what they wanted. And I used to cut myself when I was in high school. So that kind of all brought like my anxiety and depression into that piece.
Sure.
The other one was a mermaid holding a human head, and I know that people thought, or at least I heard, that this was like, I don't remember how they described it, but showing like, look what I did. But that was also a coping mechanism, having to drag that around with me everywhere we moved. And also I did that in October, so it was supposed to be kind of a macabre piece for Halloween. And also tying back to the myth of mermaids, that they would dismember their victims and drown them or whatever. So that was both a kind of, what's the word, a shock value piece mixed with my own personal struggle.
And the personal struggle being dealing with all of this that we just watched.
I mean, I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Like,
Yeah, you had to release that in some fashion, and for you that was art.
So if there are any other pieces that were alarming, none of them were meant as bragging rights. They were all just coping mechanisms.
Sure. I appreciate it because that makes more sense.
Yeah.
No, because you had the one makeup related, and that's the one that you had. And you had one and out for an honorable mention, I think, on that one of your art shows. So that was the one made with blood. Was that your blood that you used in that?
I just pricked a finger and put some in a cup and used it, so it wasn't like any weird gory thing.
Sure.
So that piece meant a lot to me because of everything that I had gone through with Corey. I basically just felt like a piece of meat, and I needed a way to get that out.
Okay. Understand. And you had another one titled Sacrificial Lamb.
That I think that was I did that before the painting. Same sheep, same. It's actually coincidence that I drew it with the limbs severed. I remember looking at some artists who did something like that, and so that was also coping with feeling like the sacrificial lamb. So I did that first, and then I did the painting.
It's a strange detour in an already strange morning. Investigators asked Sarah about her artwork, specifically 2 pieces that had raised flags when they were discovered. The first, a painting made partially with her own blood, depicting what she calls a sacrificial lamb. Sarah says she made it years before Ryan arrived as a coping mechanism for her troubled marriage with Corey. The second, a mermaid, rendered in detail, holding a severed human head. Sarah explains this was another coping piece, a way of processing the weight she was carrying. She adds, almost as an afterthought, that it was October, and she'd intended it as something macabre for Halloween. A reference to old mermaid mythology, she says. The myth of mermaids who would dismember their victims. She won a mention at an art show with one of these pieces. Sarah insists none of this was bragging. None of it was meant as a confession dressed in paint. It was all just a way to cope with something she couldn't speak aloud to anyone. That may be entirely true. Art has long been a vehicle for processing the unspeakable, but the investigator's response is careful. That makes more sense. Whether it does or doesn't, the imagery is difficult to set aside.
Getting back a little bit to the buy. Okay, there's no easy way around it, so I apologize. How long do you recall that the hands or the head and things remained in the freezer?
Several days. I don't remember exactly how long, but I knew it wasn't right away. But with the way Naira had bagged them and positioned them, it didn't bring any suspicion. At least Corey never seemed suspicious of it. I think she was waiting for like a time when nobody would be there and she wouldn't be disturbed. So when Corey was at school, he's usually there. He would usually take the bus sometime in the morning and not be back until either late afternoon, early evening, something like that. And so she would have waited until I was at work and he was at school so she wouldn't be interrupted. So I know it was in there for at least a few days, if not longer.
And this wasn't something discussed with Corey at all?
No.
I didn't know. Was there ever any conversation with Corey, even after this kind of came out on the news?
I haven't spoken to him for many, many years. 4 years now, I think.
Okay.
He did ask me, I think, on a few occasions what I did that day, but I would never tell him. I suspect he thinks it was some kind of drug deal, but he never knew what actually happened and then didn't ask me anymore.
And what do you mean he suspects it was some kind of drug deal?
I mean, he told me, or when he was trying to ask me, like, what happened, and I said, I can't tell you. I do remember asking him, what do you think it was? And he said, I thought it was some kind of drug deal. Because he knew that Naira had some shady secrets. There was no proof, but based on her personality, I think that was what he thought had happened. But he never outright asked me, and I never outright volunteered any of the information. So I didn't even to know.
Okay. So you're speaking of why you guys were gone and came home at such an odd time frame.
And why would my phone be off? Because I never turned off my phone. But Naira wanted me to, so that he couldn't contact me, and also that they couldn't track the GPS or something like that. I didn't fully understand that. I just followed her directions.
Okay. So, and speaking about that, the conversation that you had with Corey about Ryan, was Naira was not a part of that?
No. I told her afterwards, but she wasn't there for the initial part. I just relayed the information.
Okay. And you mentioned something about Naira's shady past.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about that.
So she started hormone therapy when she was, I think, 20 or 21. And she moved out of her mother's house. And the places that she had stayed were kind of seedy. I know she stayed with, or she roomed with some porn stars. She was doing cam videos to make money. She had a violent past. When she was in high school, I think she tried to stab someone with a pencil or something, but the charges were dropped. She implied that she had done something else that was also violent that I never found out about. And then just the way her personality was with the sociopathic tendencies, the aggressive, manipulative behavior. She didn't like to talk about her past with me, but she would sometimes feed me small little tidbits to show that she had secrets.
And do you think that was in a way to manipulate you? To intimidate you?
Possibly. I don't really know how I felt about it. I mean, later on, the longer we were together, I just accepted it and didn't try to ask because that was her past and she would deal with it what she wanted. But once Corey couldn't be with her and me. And once she came back, he changed his attitude from trying to insert himself to trying to make me break up with her, basically.
So you mentioned that she would give you little tidbits here and there of these secrets and things. The tidbits being she tried to stab somebody with a pencil. Was that kind of like
that was one that she was straightforward with me about.
Tell me more about that.
Let's see. I don't know what grade it was. I just know it was high school. It was before she started transitioning. And I think it might have been, I don't know if this is 100% true, but I think she was at a point in her life where she knew that she should have been a woman, but didn't have the resources to do anything about it. So she always had a lot of aggression. She was a very straightforward, aggressive type of person.
Sure.
So from my understanding with the stabbing, I think she and some friends had made a comic for themselves, and the person who was stabbed took the pages and tore them up or something like that. So she took a pencil and I don't know where they got stabbed, but she stabbed them with a pencil, and she was brought to court, but the charges were dropped or some kind of agreement they came to, so it never stayed on her record.
Did this happen at the school or outside of the school? Do you remember?
I think it was at the school.
Do you happen to know what school she attended? No. Do you know where her hometown was?
Holyoke, Massachusetts. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was at one of those schools in the area.
Okay. Appreciate you sharing.
Okay. And with all her, like, if she had these violent tendencies, was there ever a time that you were like, oh, maybe this is a relationship I want to shy away from? Maybe she needs to leave?
During her absence, when she was back at her hometown, I do remember that Corey took advantage of her absence to try to turn me against her. Either because I want to say it could have been because he saw what she was really like, but the truth is he felt jealous, and what's the word? He wanted her out of my life, because I kept choosing her over him, for obvious reasons. So during her absence, he started causing me to resent her. And when she did finally come back, we kind of had a fight over the phone. But what ended up happening was we stopped trying to be intimate and just started to be friends, which made the relationship stronger. And she became more open with me. When I first met her, she was very, very guarded. She never really shared anything about herself. She didn't want me to add her on Facebook. She didn't want any public knowledge of us. But once she came back, she was more open about that. To me, to a longer-term relationship, less casual. So what Corey had tried to do actually ended up backfiring on him.
Sure. But you mentioned that she didn't want that connection, basically, at least not in the public's view. Did she have Facebook?
She did, but she didn't really use it. She never posted pictures of herself. She never let anyone take pictures of her because she had horrible self-esteem issues, and what she pictured as her inner self was not what she actually saw. So she had her Facebook to talk to friends,
Sure.
But never to post pictures or anything like that.
What name would she have gone by?
When I met her, she stuck with Jennifer. The only people who knew her real name was her family, well, specifically her mother and her sister, myself, and any medical professionals, dentists, doctors, stuff like that.
By this point in the conversation, investigators have a reasonably detailed portrait of Naira Whitaker, and it's not a flattering one. A history of violence in high school, a stabbing incident with a pencil, charges that were quietly dropped, a personality that Sarah describes as borderline sociopathic, someone who found pleasure in identifying vulnerabilities and exploiting them, who trolled people online for sport, who would probe at a person's weaknesses just to watch them react, someone who made casual comments about shooting strangers in parking lots or driving cyclists off the road, and who never, until Ryan Zimmerman, apparently acted on them. But here's the complication that Sarah herself raises, unprompted. She suspected Naira may have done something like this before. She asked her once. Naira didn't answer, and Sarah never pushed. That answer, or rather that non-answer, landed somewhere in Sarah's mind and stayed there. She accepted it, filed it away, and kept living with her. The investigators, who have already heard the version of Naira that Sarah told them in the first interview, this version is more complete, more granular, it's more personal, and it raises the question that no one in this room can fully answer anymore, because Naira Whitaker is gone. Was she the leader? Was she the architect? Or was Sarah the woman who managed every financial account, every schedule, every piece of the couple's daily life, more in control of this situation than she is letting on? That question, investigators know, will never have a clean resolution.
So what would have been her, Facebook or social media name?
Probably Jenna.
Jenna?
That's typically what she used.
Did she use a certain last name?
No. She tried to keep it just Jenna. She also never used her last name for anything. So on Steam she was Jenna, on her message boards she was Jenna, so that was the common name that most people knew her by.
So to get accounts on these different media sites and things, you generally would have to have some sort of email address.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall what her email address was?
It was also Jenna573, and it was through it was basically a message board, but it was tied to an organization she used to be a part of that did games. So at things like Comic-Con, they would bring Dance Dance Revolution, arcade games, set them up so that people at the convention can use it. And that was the group that her email was tied to.
Did she have a Gmail account or anything? Do you know what that would have been?
Well, her email was technically Gmail, but the end handle was different, so it was Jenna573 at, and it spelled out Bimani Sows, which was the name of the forum, but it used the Google layout. Okay. Whoever was in charge of the email, I don't really know what it was like or how they did it, but it was routed through Gmail, but it used the website's handle, so something like that.
Okay.
But I think it was through Gmail, but the website host was in charge of distributing the emails or providing them or something like that. I don't fully understand it.
Sure. Okay. Back in I guess it had been 2015, around August or so, there were searches for firearm, bill of sale. I guess it would have been around August 10th or so. Do you recall searching it?
I don't recall it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if it was for her pistol that she used or if it was for the rifle that I bought. I want to say it was the rifle, but I'm not 100% sure.
What initiated those purchases?
Naira was I don't want to say a gun fanatic, but she strongly believed in her right to carry. And she already had a shotgun, an air rifle, and I think it was just those two. She purchased the pistol. I can't remember when. Sometime during the summer, and then she wanted to go shooting at a range. So she was doing research to see what would work best for me, because I wanted, I never really cared about guns. I still don't, but it was something that we could bond over and she could teach me about. And if we ever played like zombie games or something like that, I would always pick rifles, so she did research for me to find the best one. So that could have been what the searches were.
Sure.
I don't think I would have done the searches myself because I didn't understand what I needed to look for. So that would have been something that she did and then explained later to me.
Do you recall going out with her to purchase a pistol just shortly after this weekend?
I think I don't know if it was before or after, but I did go with her to, I think it was Gander Mountain. At least that's where I got mine, so I imagine that we went on to the same place. I thought it was before, but it could have been after. I honestly don't remember, but I do remember going with her.
Do you recall the conversation? I guess, was it anything to do with, possibly using it on Ryan or having it for after the fact for the suicide pact, or when did that suicide pact come into play?
I don't think we really discussed it until after the body had been found, because she became more paranoid. I don't remember if I'm thinking the suicide pact was after she got the pistol because that would make the most sense. So it was sometime after January, February then that it was really spoken about. It was not something that I wanted to talk about frequently. Because it was very, very scary to think about. So we discussed it and just kind of left it.
Right. Okay. Getting back to the body and things, analyzing some of that, there have been like foil pieces discovered with some of it. Do you recall anything including foil or, if that would have been something that came off of something that was used?
There wasn't anything upstairs that we had used that had foil in it. It was just trash bags, medical gloves, the saw, the bleach, and the vinegar, and some clean rags or paper towels, and I guess the duct tape. I don't know what the foil would be. That would have been something that she did something with on her own.
Okay. The saw itself, was it like a clean saw? Was it rusty? Was it, you know what I'm saying?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I don't remember if it was new or old.
And obviously the first time that Megan and I went back here after your arrest when you got brought over here, I had asked you about your tattoo as we were walking back.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in correlation to the suicide part?
I got this after we had discussed it. And also, unfortunately now it's a memento of her. But I did get it during the period where I was most terrified and anxious about it. And it was also, I guess, more of a reminder for her because she would see it more than I did. And every now and then she would kiss it for good luck. And so that's what the...
Did anybody else know about your suicide pact?
Yeah.
I didn't know if anybody else had seen that and questioned what that was about.
I've had not any family members, but strangers have asked about it, and I would just say that it's the caliber that her pistol had. And that's all I would say.
Sure, about it. Personal thing.
So Jen had used, or Moira had used your phone a lot to do a lot of these searches. Did her phone have data capabilities?
I think the phone she had at the time was one that you might have gotten, the HTC silver phone. It was a little outdated, and she primarily used it for music and videos and things like that. So my phone, whatever plan my mom had, had unlimited data, so it was a little bit faster. And I usually always had it on me, so if she needed to look up someone or something quickly, she would just grab it and type it in, rather than like if we were upstairs, she'd have to go back downstairs and get it, things like that.
Do you recall if she had a passcode in here?
On hers,
Or what that would be?
probably, but I
didn't know if it was like some number that you both, would recall. Okay.
And prior to you and Naira meeting, I know you said that you met on a dating website. Do you remember what it was? Craigslist.
before
Okay.
they took down the personal section.
Sure. Okay. And that was the same one Corey was using where he had found Ryan?
I don't know. He didn't share any of that. I didn't want to know. He just told me, I've been talking to this guy and I want him to come and stay with us.
Okay.
I know that I did talk to Ryan once. I don't know if it was Google Hangouts or IM or something. But yeah, I had talked to him once. That's where I said, oh, you like to sketch, I could help you. And he said, yeah, and talked to him just that one time, never got photos or anything, and then I just stopped talking to him and let Corey do his own thing.
Cool. And it sounded like you and Corey were kind of venturing out of the marriage.
Unknowingly.
Okay.
Yeah. Since, well, I mean, in hindsight, I can see a lot of the signs that I should have seen with him. When we were dating, he had cheated on me once. When we got married, and then moved into the apartment so I could start my freshman year, he tried to go after my best friend, which caused us to have a falling out. He went after my classmates. So the first couple of years I was trying to support him with whatever he was figuring out, but by year 3 and on, I was just tired of it. I was exploring my sexuality because I thought for a while I was more attracted to women, and he was okay with that, expecting that he might be able to stick himself in the relationship. So definitely by the time I met Naira, we were both kind of branching off. I had more success than he did, but definitely by year 4.5 to 5, we were pursuing our own separate relationships. I had considered divorce for a while, but I wasn't sure if that was something I really wanted to do. And Ryan's death kind of acted as a catalyst and made me realize that I didn't want to be with Corey anymore, especially when after Ryan in his mind left, he almost immediately found a new girlfriend to move in. I don't think she officially moved in, but she was there enough that she acted as another person. And I was just done with all of these people being in the apartment.
Was there anyone else that's before Corey, or before Ryan?
If there were, they were casual.
Okay.
I can't think of any. I mean, I can think of all the attempts that he made with all my friends, but nothing was ever successful.
Okay. Nothing where he had wanted to move someone else in, had asked you for permission to move someone else in.
This is the first time.
Okay. You mentioned all of Naira's mentioning, like, the lady walking across the parking lot and how easy it would be. Had it ever crossed your mind that possibly she's done something like this before?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Do you have any knowledge of her ever doing this before?
No.
The investigator asks a blunt question. Has it ever crossed your mind that maybe she's done something like this before? Without hesitation, oh yes. And then just as quickly, but I don't have any knowledge of it. She asked Naira once. Again, Naira didn't answer. She didn't push. It's worth sitting with that for a moment, though. Sarah Buzzard is describing a woman she lived with, married, shared finances with, and traveled internationally with, a woman she describes as the most important person in her life, and she is openly acknowledging that she suspected this woman may have killed before. She stayed anyway. That's not evidence of anything. People stay in relationships with dangerous people for reasons that defy outside logic all the time. Sarah herself will spend time in this room explaining the psychological grip that she says Naira held over her. But it adds another layer to a question that's been quietly building since the interview began. At what point does willful ignorance become something more deliberate?
And I don't think she would have told me anyway, as whatever the term is, I wouldn't be an accomplice or keeping it secret or something like that. So I never knew for sure, but I wouldn't have been surprised.
You never asked her, and she's done something like that.
I asked her once, and she didn't answer, which is probably what made me suspect that something had happened, but I never pushed her for it.
You said she kind of had a past, violent past, that sort of thing. Other than the pencil stabbing, are you aware of any other?
Anything that she was never big on physical violence, mostly mental. And early in our relationship, she did it to me too. She liked to find people's weaknesses and dig her claws into them and just keep pushing them. She would troll people online because it was funny and fun for her. And she liked seeing how far she could go pushing someone's buttons. So for our first few years together, she would do that to me until it became too much. And she worked on not subjecting me to that, but we'd still do it to other people online, especially if she was playing games. So her violence was usually directed to inanimate objects like cookery, clothes, whatever. But not really to other people, if that makes sense.
Do you know if she had been arrested for anything else?
I didn't know. I didn't know about the stabbing, so I'm not sure.
About how long would she have been at the time?
She was in high school. I don't know exactly when, but sometime high school.
And you said you know what name she would have went by at that time?
Yes, I think it would have been under Yarny Whitaker.
Okay. Do you know any prior names?
She was born Jeremy Ramos, and then sometime in school, I don't know if it was high school or middle school, she changed her name to Yari Whitaker, and then she changed her name to Naira Whitaker.
Okay. You mentioned having a conversation with Ryan about him peeking out the door, wanting to talk with you, that sort of thing. Was there ever any conversation that led you to believe that he would have wanted to harm himself in any way, felt suicidal, or that he was just overwhelmed with leaving as courageous?
Only that time did he ever strike, I don't know if I go so far as to say suicidal, but at least self-harm, because when he was crying and pleading, he was pulling on his hair a little harder than one would normally do, and hitting himself in the forehead with the heel of his hand, to the point I could hear it echoing. He had never said or displayed suicidal tendencies. The only other time that I saw him come somewhat close to how he acted in the bedroom was when she did the dishes not very well, and when Naira came down to put them away or use one, she called him out on it. And I do remember her trying to explain to him, this is how you can make sure that nothing is left over. And it was a conversation where it would have made sense for him to say, oh, okay, I'll do it better next time. But instead, he collapsed into a chair, crying and saying, this is the one job that I have to do, and I can't even do it right. And I know all of us were in the kitchen, and we were all shocked at that response. So I assume he had a lot of anxiety. He obviously had a lot of self-esteem, self-confidence issues. And I don't think he really knew how to handle criticism, so that's why he acted the way he did. That's why he eavesdropped on the stairs. He was, he had a lot of problems, but it wasn't something that I wanted to help coach him to figure out. I just let him do his own thing.
Sure. And that conversation where he was pleading and crying and things, was that morning?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess it was Saturday.
Yeah, sometime on Saturday. I don't think it was, I don't remember exactly when, but either probably in the early to mid-afternoon, something like that.
Okay. And you said, obviously, these weaknesses of Brian are obvious to all three of you in this apartment at this point in time. And you said Naira liked to latch onto those, kind of dig her claws into those weaknesses, about something that she did to Ryan.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I guess how would she go about it? Would it be like more verbal, put down, things like that? Did she ever get physical towards him at all?
Okay. It was always verbal. Probably because the things that she would say or point out stuck a lot more than it was a physical altercation.
So you mentioned that you had brought Naira up to speed on the part where Corey had told Ryan he needed to leave and that sort of thing. And then was that before the conversation that she started making comments about killing him and the plan? Or why wouldn't she have just left him pack his things and leave?
I don't know. That's because I remember telling her, why can't we just let him go? Why do you need to do this? And the thing she said was along the lines of, someone like that doesn't deserve to be out in the world to ruin someone else's life. So I think in some perverse way it was her idea that I don't want to go so far as to say she was dealing out justice, but she just felt very strongly that he didn't deserve to be out there.
You had mentioned in prior conversations that you felt like Ryan had ruined your life. Did you express that to him?
When I said that the first time, I was doing it to protect her. I didn't like Ryan. He did disgust me, but I didn't feel that he ruined my life. Corey ruined my life. Every problem that I had suffered through was a direct result of his actions. So I didn't like what Ryan had done to my relationship, but I didn't blame him for the outcome, and I didn't blame him for the resulting divorce.
Sure.
Any animosity I have still is towards Corey.
Sure. Understandably.
Yeah, and that's why we tried to be friends for the year after we divorced, but it was not good, so I just cut him off completely. I haven't spoken to him since then.
In her first interview with investigators, Sarah told them she felt that Ryan Zimmerman had ruined her life. Now, with months to reflect and a confession already on the record, she's walking that back. She says she made that statement to protect Naira, to give investigators a different motive, to draw attention away from the person she still, at this point, loved enough to cover for. The truth, she says now, is that she never blamed Ryan. Corey ruined her life. Ryan was just the consequence of Corey's choices. It's a meaningful correction, and investigators accept it, largely at face value. But it also underscores something that runs through both of Sarah's interrogations. Her story is not static. It evolves. It deepens. Details were incomplete in the first interview, finding fuller expression here in this one. And statements that once served one purpose are now acknowledged as deliberate misdirection. Sarah frames each revision as honesty, as the product of reflection and remorse and the freedom that comes with no longer needing to protect someone who's already gone. And that framing may be entirely accurate. But the pattern is worth noting. Every time something in Sarah's story shifts, the shift moves in the same direction. More blame toward Naira, more complexity in Sarah's own role, more detailed offer to fill in the spaces that the first version left open.
And I hate to go there, and this is going to sound really mean coming from me, but it popped in my head. So you said you were trying to protect Jen. Knowing the suicide pact in place when that was her game plan, I guess, why try to protect her at that point in time?
Yeah, that's what I thought about in hindsight. It would have devastated me to have to throw her under the bus and say, well, she was the one who did it. I guess there was a small part of me that thought if I took the fall for her, she would be okay. But thinking back now, I should have known with the look on her face that there was no point trying to protect her. She was going to do it anyway, with me or without me.
So you knew that she was going to do that after you left?
I didn't know 100%, but I suspected it. I think at one point when I was by myself in the interview room, I thought I heard one of the officers say something about gunshot, and that's when it hit me. And I thought, oh my God, are they talking about her? Did she do it? And that was the biggest question that I had until they moved me to the other room and told me for sure.
Is there a reason you wouldn't have said something to the officers there before they brought you away?
I had just woken up, so I didn't know where my head was, and I got very lightheaded and almost passed out. So I I had a sensory overload because on one hand I'm trying to not hyperventilate, I'm trying to breathe.
Oh, you don't got a speeding ticket on your record until the cops show up at your house. That's understandable.
And both of the officers were asking me different questions. I was trying to tell them who was in the house, and there was noise, and my mom was yelling, and I kind of shut down. So I didn't have enough mental capacity to remember that pact we made. And I think there was a tiny part of me that thought things were going to be okay. So that's why I didn't say anything.
The morning of the first arrest, Sarah says she was barely awake when officers arrived. Her mother was yelling. Both officers were asking questions simultaneously. She was trying to tell them who was in the house. She nearly passed out. She had a sensory overload, she says, and she shut down. In the fog of that morning, she says she didn't think to warn officers that Naira might follow through on the pact. It's the kind of answer that's very difficult to either verify or dispute. Sensory overload is real, shock is real, and Sarah had, by her own account, spent 6 years hoping the pact would never be necessary, willing herself to believe, right up until the moment it wasn't possible anymore, that things were going to be okay. Whether she could have stopped what happened to Naira in those final minutes, that's a question Sarah will have to live with. She doesn't try to resolve it here.
With Naira, she kind of, like we discussed before, likes to sing her. Corey had mentioned that ahead of time to Brian and through their chats, because we had recovered most of their chats back and forth. And he had mentioned, like, she was mean, wouldn't like the fact that if Ryan's not taking those steps to transition, because obviously she was taking those steps to become who she wants to be and who she felt she was, so Ryan needs to be at that point as well. Was there any mutilation that Naira had done towards Ryan at all, even post his death?
No. I mean, the only mutilation was the cutting off the limbs, but I didn't know anything that Corey and Ryan talked about. But it doesn't surprise me to hear that, because that's what she did to him. She loved pointing out, so Corey was going for a psychology degree, and he felt like he had more knowledge than the average person, but Naira knew much more than he did and loved to belittle him about that. And I think he was bitter about the fact that I was grieving over her being gone for those months. So he was trying to paint her as this awful person who everyone needed to avoid, which unfortunately it worked on me, and I guess that's why he said it to Ryan. She was a little, what's the word? She was hypocritical about transitioning. With the community that she was part of, the Bimani community, she always said that she was the quote-unquote trendsetter for transitioning, because when she started, a bunch of other people in the community also did that. But her opinion of people transitioning was she didn't like people who wanted to wear it like a badge, if that makes sense, like going around saying, "Oh, look at me! You need to use my proper pronouns." Excuse me, just beat that over them. And she said that if you want to transition, your goal is to just fit in. And that's what she tried to do. She didn't point out anything. She tried to be as feminine as possible, because that's what she wanted to do as a woman. And So with people like Ryan, who say that they're transitioning but are not really making the effort, really bothered her. And she felt that way towards a lot of transgendered people. If anyone was trying to be flamboyant, she found that disgusting. So that's why the fact that Ryan wanted to but still looked and acted male just really got under her skin.
What brought her to Ohio?
She was staying with a close friend who was like a sister to her. I don't know the whole history about why they moved. I just know that she had provided funds to this, I'll just say it's her sister. She had provided funds for her sister to buy a house so that the two of them plus a bunch of roommates could all share the house, and she could stay there without needing to pay rent because she had helped with that. I don't know why she came to Ohio or why she picked it, but that's where she ended up.
So she moved with the sister to Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you know where at in Ohio?
They initially lived in Whitehall,
Okay.
and then they moved again to basically around the block from the townhouse apartment.
Oh, okay.
It was about 5 minutes away.
Okay. And do you know the name of the sister?
Mandy, I know she was killed with the drive-by. So I don't know her last name. I never met her. Naira would occasionally talk about her, but she also didn't want me to know too much about that situation.
With the drive-by or
no? With the roommates and everything. So I never went. If I ever went to her house, I would sit in the car on the street and wait for her to come out. I never went in. I never met any of them. She didn't learn about the drive-by until we had been married for maybe 2-3 years. We were living in Pennsylvania at the time.
Makes more sense. I guess I got one other thing that comes to the top of my head, but during the interview with Naira, she had mentioned that you were more of like the alpha male of the household.
Oh, okay. Of the household. Yes. Yeah. I was the only responsible person. I didn't trust Corey to manage it because not that I don't think he would have been capable, but it was just easier for me to know I'm taking care of the finances. I'm balancing the checkbook and stuff like that. That's just how I grew up, since I was basically an only child because my siblings are significantly older than me. So from a very young age, I was instilled with responsibility. I was much more mature than a lot of the freshmen at college. So her saying that definitely makes sense. When it was everyone in the apartment, I took care of finances. I asked Ryan to pay rent when he needed to. I checked on the grocery levels, asked if people needed something, blah, 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 like that. And then when Naira and I were married, I took care of everything. She suffered from severe anxiety, depression, and agoraphobia. And she was later diagnosed with I think it's ADHD. I don't think it was ADD. So she couldn't focus on tasks like that. In order to get her to help, I would have to feed her small chores to do. So say, hey, can you put the dishes away today? Or the next day, can you clean this little section of the living room? If I asked her to do anything large, like vacuum the whole house, she would shut down. So she had to rely very heavily on escapism to even function. Video games, movies, shows, things like that. And I would maintain her finances. I scheduled her doctor's appointments. I was the chauffeur if she needed to go somewhere. So it was almost like mother and child relationship in a way. But she tried to carry as much weight as she could manage. Like, she was in charge of food. She took care of all the media for us. So that was what she said. Yes, that was true. I liked being the one in charge of all of the adult things because I knew that I could keep track of them and I was managing tough.
So you immediately started shaking your head no when I brought up Alpha. So what was that to?
Alpha, outside of the responsibilities, I am very timid. I used to be very outgoing, but then something happened. I wouldn't be surprised if it was because of Corey. I cannot handle conflict at all. If someone honks at me while I'm driving, it rattles me for like an hour or so. If somebody gets in my face, I shut down. When it came to sex, I was always the submissive one. And that became difficult because before she had her surgery, even though she was taking testosterone blockers, she was still more of the aggressive one. But after her surgery, she had no sexual desire, and it was very, very difficult for me to initiate anything because that's not how my brain is wired. So when it came to doing adult things, I excelled. But when it came to life in general, I'm very, very timid, very submissive. It was easier to hide than try to confront someone. So if anything like that happened while she was with me, she would take over and stand up for me.
One of the investigators raises something Naira apparently told investigators before her death, that Sarah was, in her words, the alpha male of their household. Sarah shakes her head immediately. She's the financially responsible one, sure. She managed every account, every schedule, every decision of practical consequence. But alpha? No. Outside of logistics, she says she is deeply timid. Conflict paralyzes her. If someone honks at her while she's driving, she says it rattles her for an hour. In Naira's presence, Sarah was always the submissive one. It's a portrait that will matter at sentencing. The woman who held a man on the floor while he was killed, insisting she has never in her life been able to stand up for herself. Both things can be true. People who are emotionally passive can still be physically present in a moment of violence, and people who are organizationally dominant can still be psychologically controlled by someone who knows exactly which buttons to press. But the gap between those two portraits, the capable woman who managed everything and the helpless woman who couldn't say no, is where the harder questions about Sarah Buzzard live.
Have you ever told anybody else all these details? Because obviously it was between you and Jen, or Lyra.
When Corey and I think it was before we actually got divorced, but it was already on the court docket or whatever. I had told my two best friends at the time, but I only filled them in on the relationship details. And also my family, my mother, my father, and my brother, I gave them just the relationship part. So I kind of went into enough detail that they could understand what Corey did to me by finding other partners and what Jen did for me. I never mentioned Ryan to them, as far as I know. If I did, I just said it was a partner. So my best friends took it well. One of them I no longer contact with. The other one I talk to regularly, and she saw the good side of Jen because Jen wanted to make a good impression. And she did get along with my best friend's husband pretty well, so they would talk while she and I would catch up. And she said that she saw how happy Jen made me. My dad took a while to warm up because he's very religious, but eventually he, I guess, accepted her. He didn't know that she was transgender. Nobody knew except one of my best friends, the one I lost contact with. So my mom was pretty accepting. My brother, I don't think ever did, because she was very bossy. She wanted things to go the way that she thought. So when he first met her, he got that feeling that she was just manipulating me. And even today, he's still very bitter at her, accusing her of being selfish and leaving me behind, and reminding me of some of the things that she's done. I don't remember what the question was.
No, you're good. I'm going to follow up with another one. Have you ever told anybody about the killing itself, like how that all went down?
I didn't tell anyone. I feel like she might have told 2 people that she trusted, because they would have been like our safe house. If we found out, we could drop off the grid and stay with them. I don't know how much detail she went into, but I know that she had mentioned that she was talking to a couple of people, and that
would these have been the same people that would have purchased the Greyhound ticket?
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I never saw or heard her arranging this. She just told me after the fact, as a need-to-know basis.
Did she tell you who these people were?
I can remember 2 of them, but I only know their first name. Well, one of them, no, I think I only know their first names for both. One of them was in Nevada and was in the process of trying to buy a house. The other one lived in an apartment, but it was a house, so he stayed on his room was the 2nd floor. And that one was more temporary. But I think their life situations changed, so those plans fell through. And then I don't know if she found any backups, or if we were at a point where we thought that we were in the clear and we could start looking for our own place.
What would those first names have been, if you don't mind?
Paul and Stephen, maybe.
And when she would communicate with those individuals, how would she communicate with them?
Usually it was on Discord, which is like site, but for more for gamers,
Right.
Or Steam. I want to say both of them might have been Discord. I know Paul definitely. I think if it's Steve, that it would have been on Discord too. Yeah, and so that's all I know. I never actually got to read any of their conversations or anything. She just told me what their names were.
Have you ever gotten to meet either?
I know Paul. I can't remember his last name. I think it starts with a K. He was nice, but he was more of a last resort type of place because his apartment was small and it would be difficult to house 2 more people in it, so his was more of a temporary until we found something better. Steve's was more permanent, I think, because it was a proper house.
Which one would be in Nevada?
Steve.
Okay. Gotcha. You're not sure where Paul lived?
I think he's still in New Hampshire.
Okay. Were these friends that she had before meeting you, or
She did.
maybe from school, or just life in general?
Either school or through the gaming stuff she did. But I don't want Paul to get involved if that's possible. I mean, you're welcome to, I guess, look for his conversations, but I don't think he would be. I don't think she would. I don't know. I don't even know if he knows that my friend died.
Sure.
Because they were part of the gaming community that, and she liked to keep her circle of friends separate. So I don't think her mother knew anyone enough in that game circle to let them know that she had passed.
Sure.
So I don't want him to have to get involved because I feel like that's going to start a whole cascade.
Sure.
For 6 years, Sarah Buzzard told no one, not her mother, who she lived with, not her closest friends, who she confided in about Corey and Naira and the divorce, not her father, who she says eventually came to accept Naira despite his religious reservations. She told people about the relationship. She told them what Corey had done to her. She let them see how happy Naira made her and let them draw their own conclusions about the kind of person Naira was. But the thing that happened in that second-floor hallway on the night of September 26th, my birthday, 2015, that she kept entirely to herself? Naira may have told 2 people, Sarah believes, online friends from her gaming community, people who had agreed to serve as safe houses in case they needed to disappear. Paul, somewhere in New Hampshire, and Steve in Nevada, first names only. Whether either of those individuals ever came forward, whether they knew the full scope of what they were being asked to protect, is something investigators have their own files on.
Do you know, and speaking of the gaming community, knowing that Ryan was also part of the gaming community, did those
It was
ever
a
connect?
different gaming community. Ryan was more of the like Nintendo, PlayStation, Steam, online type of community. The Bimani community specifically does Bimani games, which are Japanese. They are, at least from what she's told me, the members there are kind of elitist. They don't like when new people come in because they've been around for years and years. So they kind of just stay in their own social circles and aren't really welcoming to strangers. She never got me involved with them if it was possible.
Sure.
I think I went to a couple of like house parties, but I usually kept to myself because I didn't know anyone. I didn't really play the games, or if I did, I was nowhere near the skill level they were. So I only knew basically just one person. No, two people from them that I casually played games with along with her. I got to meet them. Never any close relationships, but I knew who they were.
So you obviously had a job at Barnes & Noble, and I have had different jobs throughout your life. Did she get any other educational background after high school? Was
She started in college, but I think she dropped out. she had tried to get a few job positions before she met me. I think she worked at a gas station before she transitioned. When she started transitioning, she worked at a Jamaican restaurant, and there was an apartment that she was in above it or something like that. When she went to Nevada, she did the webcam videos. And the only other official job position she had was, when we first met, or when we first moved to Pennsylvania, she worked at an arcade, but she quit after not quite a year, I'm not sure, because she didn't get to do what she wanted to do. She liked fixing cabinets, so she liked getting into the electronics and soldering and doing all that stuff, but all she did at the job was essentially babysit people. And I remember her bosses were not receptive to her ideas of how to make things better. And she got so stressed by it that she was making herself physically ill, so I told her to quit. And from that point on, the only kind of jobs sort of that she did was buying old platforms, Game Boys, games, PlayStations, all the stuff like that, fixing them up and modding them for current use, and then reselling them for a profit.
Sure.
So anything she did was primarily at home.
Okay. Where do you know where she attended and dropped out from?
No. It might have been some kind of IT school, but I had no idea what it was or where it was.
Was she getting any other income through services through the county I've been living in, things like that?
We would regularly get food stamps, no cash, anything but food stamps. And then I don't remember. We were still in Pennsylvania. She applied for Social Security. No, it was SSI. I forget what it stands for. So I helped her find a lawyer for that. To do her case, and she got approved, so she was getting roughly $750-ish. Well, I think it would fluctuate depending on my wages, but generally it was around $700 to $750 a month for that.
So did she have her own bank account then?
No.
Okay.
She used either a joint one with her mother, or her funds would come straight to me because I was her, I forget the term, the responsible party, or
basically the primary. With your spousal.
It wasn't specifically spousal, but it was because I was her spouse. Representative payee or something, I think it's called. Yeah. So I had a debit card. Okay. So I managed her finances. Usually her funds would go towards, I paid the electric bill when I stayed with my mom, so I would use hers to pay for that, to pay other bills, and to set some money aside for a down payment. And then the money that I made would usually be used towards her getting her electronics and fixing stuff up, shipping and things like that.
Okay. Did she ever at any point have a car or anything like that?
I think she did well before I met her. I know that she had her license, but she couldn't really drive because she couldn't focus on anything. I tried to let her practice driving my car once, and that was terrifying, so I was always her chauffeur.
Right. Okay. You mentioned her mom. What would be her mom's name?
Doreen Desmarto.
I'm not going to ask you to spell it.
I could spell it.
Could you spell it for me?
So it's Doreen is Doreen, and DESMARTEAU. What is that?
Yeah. That's quite a few different.
So I don't know how much she knows.
Yeah.
I know that.
I'm not looking at.
Okay. Because I think she's still in a lot of pain, and I can imagine what she's thinking on the news. Because right now, what's on the news is the statement I originally made.
Sure.
I have written to her to see how she's doing, and she was able to arrange the funeral, but she is not handling this well at all.
Hoping that she maybe responded to your writings to her.
She sent me a letter once, and I haven't been able to write her back because it hurts too much.
Sure.
But I know that she's been texting my mom, and my brother has been helping gather up some of Jen's belongings and mailed them back to her, like her clothes, some of her toys, the mementos, the gaming things.
Sure.
But I don't think she's at a point where she can find closure yet.
In due time, hopefully, one day at a time.
Yeah.
Over the past several minutes, a more detailed picture of Naira Whitaker has emerged. She struggled to hold jobs. She suffered from severe anxiety, depression, and agoraphobia. She'd been diagnosed with ADHD. She couldn't drive. She couldn't manage large tasks. She required Sarah to guide her through household chores in small, manageable pieces to prevent her from shutting down entirely. Sarah managed Naira's government benefits, her SSI payments, her doctor's appointments. She was, she says, equal parts partner and caretaker. And yet, this is the same Naira who apparently planned a murder in careful, deliberate stages, researched chemical reactions, coordinated Greyhound tickets through an online contact, managed the disposal of remains over multiple moves and multiple years, kept the investigation at bay for 6 years by controlling what information got shared with whom. These two versions of Naira Whitaker are not easy to reconcile. Sarah doesn't try to reconcile them. She simply holds both versions in the same story and lets investigators draw their own lines. One lingering question, one that will never have a definitive answer, is whether Naira's dependency on Sarah was as total as Sarah describes, or whether, in a relationship where Sarah controlled everything logistical and financial, Naira had found her own quiet kind of power over the one area Sarah couldn't manage on her own. What to do about Ryan Zimmerman?
At the beginning, you mentioned a statement for sentencing, that sort of thing. Obviously, you probably have a lot that you'd like to say, I would assume, given our first interview and then today's discussion, that sort of thing. Is that something that you'd be open to sharing at some point, or just after?
Most of it, I'm trying to keep.
Is a lot of it the details that we spoke of today?
I started from when I met Naira on Craigslist, and then all the way to Corey and my divorce, our marriage, a couple of other things, and then her suicide. And
Yeah. Okay. We've been asking you a lot of questions. I guess, is there anything that you want to, we go in more detail, anything that you thought of that we've sat here for quite some time?
I don't think so. I'm just hoping that nothing is going to change the plea bargain that I've done.
You mean anything that you've said today? Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's been discussed with you and your attorneys, that sort of thing. They would never put you in a position to do this conversation today.
Yeah. He just said to tell you the same thing that I told them, which I did.
Yeah.
I think I just wanted to much more detail about Naira.
And we appreciate that because it kind of gives us a little better understanding of kind of what brought things to the point that it did.
Because I don't know if the prosecution knows how much detail about Naira. So I'm basically just hoping that at the sentencing, essentially the same thing that I told both of you, just condensed a little bit, we'll be able to go on the record so that my side of the story and what actually happened will be out. Because the last time I was in the papers, it was awful. So many things on there I wanted to say that's not true, that's not what happened. So this is the only time that I'll be able to. I did think of a couple of other things. Early on, when I was first... What comes after the arraignment? The indictment or something like that?
Okay.
The papers had pointed out the large sum of cash and my plane tickets, and assumed I was going to use that to flee. And I never got to correct us about that. The money was about $17,000 some dollars. That was supposed to be for a house down payment. Every month I would take a little bit from Naira's Social Security to put it in cash, one, because mostly I did it in cash so I wouldn't be tempted to spend it.
Sure.
So I put it in a lockbox, hoping that I would be able to save enough to get a decent down payment. And then with the tickets, they had pointed out the two that I had pending and all of the places I had been to. I love to travel. My parents love to travel. I've been to so many places, especially my mother. And that's why I had been flying all over the country and internationally before with her. And the two tickets that I had pending, one was to go to Nevada, and that was to look at plots of land, houses on the market to get an idea of what we could get. And then the one in September was a gallery show opening that I had gotten a piece in, and I was going to fly out there to see it. So that's what those things were. I guess I just want it to be known that it wasn't ever a flight risk. I had those because that was the life that I like to live.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you clarifying.
If I might ask, why Nevada?
That's where Naira stayed for, I think, 6 months. And she loves the desert climate. She had lived in Paradise, which is close to Las Vegas. And she loved being there. She always talked about how much she wanted to go back to the desert, and that land out there was much cheaper than anywhere else. I didn't really have a place that I wanted to stay permanently, so I was fine with going along with her wanting to live out there.
Oh. And speaking of traveling, when you all went to Thailand, where did the pot and bags and things remain?
So I was still staying at my mom's house. It would have been in the garage, buried under things, similar to when I signed the warrant for the police to take it away, kind of in the same spot. At the time, my mom's garage was very, very, very full, so it was easy to lose something in there.
Sure.
So we just stuck it in the back
So it remained at your mom's?
Yes.
Okay.
And we went to Thailand for her surgery.
Sorry,
No, you're fine. Was Naira born in Holyoke?
I believe so.
Okay, that's where you thought. And then one other thing that popped up is, why Illinois? Because we're going to drive to Illinois.
I can only assume it was far enough away to manage and close enough that we could get back in a time period that was reasonable. She never told me. She just said, drive there, and we'll figure it out from there.
It follows them everywhere they go, from the Columbus apartment to Sarah's mother's house to their first apartment in Pennsylvania, and back to the garage when they flew to Thailand for Naira's gender reassignment surgery. The soup pot with the lime mixture, the bags with the hands and feet, tucked under things, buried in the back of an overfilled garage, easy to lose. Sarah describes carrying this, the weight of it, across years and states, through a divorce and a remarriage and a new life in Pennsylvania, with the kind of flat exhaustion that comes from having already accepted something impossible as routine. When investigators eventually executed their search warrant, they found it right where Sarah had led them, in the back of her mother's garage in Mercer County, the same county where the torso had been abandoned years before, the same county where, 6 years earlier, everything finally came to a stop.
Do you recall, I guess, kind of branching off of that a little bit, but to Illinois, and you came up to Mercer County instead. Was that out of...
That was out of habit.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of things that we had to finish taking care of in Columbus before I could turn in keys and vacate the apartment. So it wasn't uncommon. I think it was because we didn't want to rent a trailer to carry everything. I would make the drive usually once a week or once every 2 weeks, and we would sift through items that we wanted to throw away or donate, and anything we wanted to keep, we would load up as much as we could in my car and drive back. So after doing that for several months, it just became a habit to follow that path. And since I couldn't have my phone on, I couldn't use a GPS, so I had to take a way that I was familiar with. And I wouldn't have, I don't know if what Naira's plan was once I left familiar territory, if she would let me turn it on or if she would use her own or whatever.
Had you been aware that pull-off was there, just from driving by?
I had seen it. I didn't really know anything about it. It was just the only wooded area I could think of, and I was so tired that I told her, I was like, I can't keep going. We're gonna have to find somewhere to stop.
Did you stop to get gas or drinks or food or?
I don't think so. I know I wouldn't have. Maybe I would have stopped for coffee at a gas station, but if we stopped anywhere, it wasn't for long. And I don't recall needing gas.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm breaking
Okay.
Why Mercer County? Why, when the plan was Illinois, did they end up just a few miles from the same roads Sarah had been driving for months? Habit, she says. She'd been making the drive between Columbus and her mother's house in Mercer County for months while she vacated the apartment, once or twice a week loading up the car and coming back. Without GPS, Naira had insisted the phones stay off to prevent tracking. Sarah defaulted to the roads she knew, and the wooded pull-offs she'd noticed from those drives was the first place she could think of to stop. It's one of the stranger ironies in a case full of ironies. The thing that ultimately connected Ryan Zimmerman's remains to the investigation was not a forensic breakthrough or a tip or a digital trail. It was Sarah Buzzard driving, exhausted, on a road she knew by heart and running out of road to drive.
Do you have anything else you want to make sure we cover? I know this is a lot.
No, I think you both now have the most thorough story out of it. I did tell a lot of this to Randy and Eric, but not as much detail.
I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah. I'm just hoping that it doesn't.
They would not put you in this position.
Okay. No, they're not. Okay.
It's more for our educational purposes.
That's what I figured.
And they're aware of today's date and time and our meeting and that sort of thing. And obviously, I'll let her know when we're completed that we got to speak with you. And we've been communicating with them through this whole process.
Have you been in contact with Ryan's family?
You mean since this is all kind of transpired here?
Kind of, or...
Yeah, I mean, we've been in contact with them. I mean, obviously, I haven't been recently, myself, personally. But yeah, they're fully, obviously, aware of the situation and that sort of thing.
Because I know that, unsurprisingly, they were clamoring for the death sentence. I guess, I'm wondering if this will get shared with them to clarify some things that they're probably wondering about. And I'm also nervous because I know that they'll be there in person at the sentencing, and as I've said, I don't deal with conflict very well, so I have a deep-seated fear that they're going to scream at me.
That won't be allowed. Okay, that's not going to be something that's going to be allowed in the courtroom. Okay. It's very much a professional proceeding, and it's meant to be kept that way. Okay. Now, obviously, we can't sit there and be sure that it's not really something initiated, but I don't know that I foresee that being an issue. But if it would become one, if it would become one, it would be addressed immediately.
So that's what I'm most terrified of, is just the fact that I have to face them. And I liked the portion that I wrote specifically addressing them, which once I'm done with the statement, and if I get Randy's okay, I can make a copy for you or something.
Sure.
I did say that I know that the words that I say won't bring Ryan back, and I said that I didn't expect them to forgive me for what I did, but that I hope they would be able to find some sort of peace someday.
Well, it's very nice, honorable for you to at least speak to them, or at least try to. So hopefully it can bring a little bit of closure, not only for them, but also for you.
Near the end of this conversation, Sarah Buzzard brings up the sentence hearing on her own. She knows Ryan's family will be there. She knows they wanted the death penalty. She is, she says, most terrified of having to face them. Not because of anything they might say, but because of what she knows she deserves to hear. She's been writing a statement. Most of it, she says, is addressed directly to Ryan's family. She tells the investigator what she plans to say, that she knows her words won't bring Ryan back, that she doesn't expect forgiveness, that she hopes they find some kind of peace someday, even if she never does. Whether those words were composed for a courtroom or grown from something genuine, only Sarah knows. What is certain is this: the investigators in this room have, over nearly 2.5 hours, gotten more from Sarah Buzzard than they got in the first interview. More detail about Naira, more candor about the mechanics of the crime, more texture around the years of concealment that followed. And Sarah, for her part, seems to understand that this conversation is not just for the record. It's also, in some way, for herself.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I have anything further. Well, obviously I have to make a phone call to let the staff next door know. And then we'll probably walk you back over if that's okay. What time it is? It's about 11:55. What time do you want to eat? I'm feeding my adult lunch. Yeah. We'll make sure we're not at the therapy.
Yeah, we'll get you a lunch. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're not going to let you starve after helping us out. So.
And thank you again so much for the coffee. You don't know how much that means to me.
Hopefully it tasted okay. We'll bring down a decent one.
They only have instant decaf in the commissary, and it's awful.
What's your favorite? Since you do drink coffee, I guess I mean.
There's a local place in Pennsylvania called La Colombe. And I think the Wawas around there have their iced coffees, but I usually like iced mochas. Hey, mochas that have chocolate in.
So I'm trying to. That's okay. This is my cold brew. I'm like, I get the cold brew. So we'll be right back with you.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
The interview ends just before noon on January 6th, 2022. Sarah thanks the investigators for the coffee, and one of them jokes that they won't let her starve after all this. She smiles. 2 weeks later, on January 20th, 2022, Sarah Buzzard appeared in Mercer County Common Pleas Court in Ohio. She'd originally been indicted on 18 felony counts, 2 counts of aggravated murder, both carrying death penalty specifications, multiple counts of murder, kidnapping, felonious assault, and abduction, tampering with evidence, grand theft of a motor vehicle, abuse, and gross abuse of a corpse. Under the plea agreement that had been in the negotiation since the weeks following her arrest, Sarah pleaded guilty to a single count of aggravated murder. The second aggravated murder count and all 16 remaining felony charges were dismissed. The death penalty specifications were dropped. In exchange, Sarah Buzzard accepted a sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. At the sentencing hearing, she was given the opportunity to speak. She addressed Ryan Zimmerman's family directly, just as she had told investigators she had planned to do. She accepted responsibility for her role in Ryan's death. She told them she did not expect forgiveness, and she said she would spend whatever years remained to her trying, in whatever ways she still could, to do something meaningful with them. The judge imposed the negotiated sentence, life in prison, parole eligibility in 30 years, explicitly noting for the record that the plea removed any possibility of death. Ryan Zimmerman was 23 years old. He had moved to Columbus looking for a connection, for people who might see him and include him, give him somewhere to belong. He found a house where no one wanted him there. He left a note on a banister asking to talk to someone. He cried on a hallway floor and begged for a second chance. He didn't get one. His remains, scattered across multiple states, were discovered in pieces across the years that followed. His family waited 6 years for answers. And when those answers finally came, they came in the form of a coffee cup being placed on a table and a woman in a jail jumpsuit saying, "Start from the beginning." Sarah Buzzard will be eligible for parole consideration in the year 2052. She will be 60 years old. Ryan Zimmerman will always be 23. I hope you enjoyed this 2-parter. It's been a mouthful, and it's been a lot of recording. But I'm glad you were here with me, and I'm glad I could fill your earballs. We'll see what happens next. Will I be in another 199 something, or will we hit 200? Only I know that for sure. Until then, so much hugs, everybody.
This has been the 911 Calls podcast with